Another week of new X-Men comics. This week we see the release of Fallen Angels #2, X-Force #2, and New Mutants #2. Now, I think personally all of these titles have something in them to recommend them. There is something good about all these books, but if I had to pick a clear winner out of this immediate batch of new X-Men comics this week, I would say New Mutants #2 is far and away the most entertaining of these, but I'll save that for last. First, let's talk a bit about Fallen Angels, and I will be spoiling the events of all three of this week's titles, so you've been warned on that. So Fallen Angels #2 begins with, I really like the cover on this one. This is from an artist by the name of Ashley Witter, I believe, who is known maybe most famously for, I believe, a Devil's Due / first comic book called Squarriors, which I haven't actually read, the entire series of that, but it's exactly what it sounds like, Squirrel Warriors. But that artist, Ashley Witter, doing the cover here, I think it's a really great shot of X-23, Psylocke, and Teen Cable. I think that's a great start to the issue. Inside, though, it's, I wouldn't say a letdown, but it's not quite the same level. I like Simon Kudronsky's art, but if Ashley Witter was doing the interiors, I think there might be less complaints coming in from certain members of the audience. I have seen some feedback for the current interior artist Simon on Fallen Angels as some people just are not a big fan of poser tracing, which is when you take the software poser, or it could be something similar, but there's definitely some software here that's being used to set up to model the characters and then being drawn over. And some people are just not a big fan of that. Your mileage may vary on that. If you know the artist Mike Deodato Jr. or Brandon Peterson, those are other artists that do the same sort of thing where they're taking the models from these software programs and then drawing over them. Again, with mixed results in some people's eyes. Now, in terms of the plot of this issue, this is an extension of the story begun in the first issue, where basically Psylocke, X-23, and Teen Cable are hunting down the purveyors of this new drug on the block, Overclock, and the mysterious villain, who I'm not sure we've seen the face of yet, Apoth, is someone they're hunting down. And on this hunt, it takes them at the end of this issue to what looks like some sort of internment camp in Brazil. And the cliffhanger here is they're going to end up fighting a strange sort of War of the Worlds looking robot on stilts sort of thing. Who knows how that'll turn out, but I do think the most interesting thing in this issue is the text page talking about what it entails to be essentially an assassin, a mind-controlled assassin for the Hand clan, or I think that's what they're talking about here, the Hand, the Ninja clan. And it's an interesting text page because it's actually a lot darker than I thought they would go in a Marvel comic, in an X-Men comic, but it talks about basically you have to treat the whole world as fallen, treat the whole world as dead, and treat yourself as part of the world as dead. And then, you have less concerns, less qualms, basically about being an assassin, about murdering other people. So that's, in terms of philosophy, it's deep, it's dark, it's blowing my mind. It's actually kind of something that it'd be something that I would try to keep out of the hands of young children. If they were getting into X-Men comics and I was reading Fallen Angels before I showed it to my 7 or 8 year old, I'd be like, I don't know about this one. Even edgy teenagers might be maybe it's too dark for them. But for all the adults, for all the mature people out there, let me know what you thought about that issue. Next on the agenda, X-Force #2, another good one. What I like about this, I think my favorite thing so far in X-Force is the colors, courtesy of Dean White. I don't think Benjamin Percy writing or Josh Cassara on art, I don't think there are any slouches, but it is, I think, kind of unusual for the colorist on a book to be, I think, the most famous professional working on the title, and I think that's the case here. You've probably seen Dean White's work before in prior volumes of X-Force, where he was working with Rick Remender writing and Jerome Opeña on art, and he's just, he's carrying that torch of quality here. It's awesome color work. The art, the line art that Josh Cassara is doing, I'm also enjoying. I don't think, To be fair, I don't think it's quite at the Jerome Opeña level, but it is still good stuff, and I'm enjoying this book. In terms of the story, my qualms, like if you saw my review for issue 1, it's the same thing I said when we were talking about the House of X and the Powers of 10 miniseries, where they were killing off all those X-Men characters. There's just no way they're going to stay dead, and it's the same here. The cliffhanger for issue 1 was that Xavier, Professor X, was murdered by some Reavers or clones of Reavers that crash landed on Krakoa, parachuted in and shot up the place and eliminated Professor X. I just don't think that's going to stick. And, one of the subplots here is Jean Grey and Beast trying to figure out the best way to resurrect Professor X and to bring Cerebro back online, which was also damaged in the firefight in issue 1. And what am I going to say? I believe they're going to do it. I totally believe they will bring Professor X back. I actually was shocked that he wasn't back in this issue. I would have thought, they wouldn't even last an issue with him 6 feet under. But, in terms of continuity, it's also interesting that all the books that have been coming out in the intervening weeks between issues of X-Force have made mention of, the island being on lockdown and everyone worried about the murder of Professor X. So the continuity is tight in terms of the story, and I like that. I appreciate that. I just don't believe he's going to stay dead for very long. The other, I guess I would say more interesting, more exciting A-plot in this issue is that Wolverine's going off hunting, and he goes to Seoul on the chase of, whoever kidnapped Domino, and also who paratrooped into the island and killed Professor X. So he's on the hunt for them. And on his hunt, he goes to, for some reason, Incheon International Airport I've actually flown into before. So that's kind of interesting. But he's going there to check out the security files. And who else is in there? Well, you could tell by the smell of Fanta, strawberry soda, Axe body spray, and a little bit of locker room funk. It's everyone's favorite mutant to hate, Kid Omega. And I say that half jokingly, if Kid Omega is actually your favorite character, I'd love to know why. Again, leave a comment about that below, because going back to Grant Morrison's run, I've always assumed that this was a character that nobody really actually liked. It's just, you'll love to hate him. And, Wolverine certainly has that relationship with him in this issue. They're working together, but Wolverine doesn't seem thrilled about it. And Kid Omega, shows what a great guy he is by talking about he set up Wolverine with a credit card and then maxed it out on Amazon. This kid Omega, he's a jerk. But the cliffhanger here in this issue, Kid Omega, Wolverine on the trail of the villains, they end up in a lab where it seems like some human scientists are experimenting on bodies, figuring out how to make humans greater weapons. And so, for some reason, is it the original Domino or a clone of Domino being rebuilt from scratch? It's hard to say now, but the final image, a powerful image from artist Josh Cassara, is Domino in what looks like a big water tank. Like, think Starship Troopers, think The Empire Strikes Back, and it's like they're rebuilding her, so like parts of her body and face are missing. It's like vaguely horrific. A little more in line though in terms of graphic imagery. It's a little more in line with what I would expect is in a Marvel comic. It's not quite as dark as the text page and the philosophy of being an assassin in Fallen Angels. Like I said, a little more appropriate in the X-Force title. Now, the third, and I say the best book of the week, is New Mutants #2. Maybe not a surprise if you remember who's writing it. Jonathan Hickman is doing, at the very least, the first storyline that's going on in this New Mutants volume. And this is a great one. I think we're really getting a sense of characters' personalities, if you didn't already know. Like the first part of the issue, for example, is Roberto DaCosta narrating and talking about everyone. They got arrested at the end of last issue by the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, the Empire. So they're in jail. Interestingly enough, Shi'ar jail gives you the same orange jumpsuit you would get in a lot of Earth America jails. So that's kind of a funny twist. But DaCosta's narrating. He's talking about, he's annoyed. He's a rich kid. He's annoyed by the thread count in the jumpsuits. He's annoyed by, his very expensive both Earth and space lawyers not coming through for him. But everything works out within 12 pages. So they've got the trial. And as it turns out, they are put into custody of the exact person they went to space to find, Samuel Guthrie, Cannonball. prior of the New Mutants and of the Avengers, now living in space with his wife, Smasher. They got a kid, and they're living in the Shi'ar Empire, and now they're in charge of the New Mutants. And just when the New Mutants think they're free and clear, have a visit with Sam, maybe go back to Earth, see what's happening back down there in Krakoa. Well, it turns out they've been conscripted into military service because they have to go get a tutor for the incoming queen of the Empire, Xandra, a new character from the Mr. and Mrs. X series that ran last year with Gambit and Rogue. She's got to learn how to be, is queen the word they use? Empress? Might be empress. So they got to go get the prior empress's sister or half-sister, Deathbird, and get her to train the new empress. So we'll see how that goes. My guess would be it's not going to go that well, but still the great thing about this New Mutants title is really just the characteristics, the personality traits. It seems like teenagers getting in over their head. It's exactly right in terms of tone. If I could quibble a little bit, I'd say maybe the problem is the same problem I had if you ever saw the show Entourage on HBO. Like, they would have dramatic cliffhangers sometimes, and the next episode would be like, oh, and by the way, we're not in trouble anymore. That prior cliffhanger, not a big deal. And that kind of seems like what will be sort of the same sort of tone in this New Mutants volume, where it's like, oh no, cliffhanger, we're in jail. But the beginning of this issue was the comedic aspects of being in prison, and then within 12 pages, they're out. So not really that big of a deal. If it keeps going in that direction, that's fine with me, as long as the interactions between these characters are so strong. So, bottom line, if you only had to get one X-Men comic this week, if you only get one, I'd say go with New Mutants, but there is something to recommend out of all these. They're not perfect by any means, but I am enjoying them still so far. I'm liking the X-Men line of books under Hickman's guidance. And, it's getting me certainly to draw more X-Men characters, like up above, my versions of Teen Cable, based on an illustration by Pepe Larraz, and my version of X-23. Believe it or not, this one is based in part on, I was looking at photos of Kristen Stewart. So if you see any resemblance there, you probably don't, but that's what I was using as reference for this character illustration. So that's it for this week. You know what I always ask you to do. If you enjoyed the video, you like my reviews, why don't you go ahead, smash like, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, tap the bell for notifications if you haven't already. And if you're an artist yourself, please share what you got, let me see it, and also keep drawing, and I'll see everyone next time.